Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Girl Be Selfish podcast. I am Chanel McCord. I am your podcast host, and I am the CEO and Clinical Director of Oasis Wellness Group. I am super excited to be back with you all for another episode and our inaugural season of the Girl Be Selfish podcast. Listen, as many of you know now, this podcast was born out of the anthology project that we worked on called Girl Be Surface, Learning Girl Be Surface. See, I can't even talk, y'all. Girl Be Selfish, Learning to Embrace Your Rhythm of Self-Care. Listen, I'm super excited because this season of the podcast, all we have been doing is interviewing the authors of the chapters. And I'm super excited today because I have another of my highly esteemed authors on with me today, Miss LaTanya Orr Richard. How are you doing today?
I am well, Chanel. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. I am excited to have you on, not just on the podcast, but also excited to have you as a part of this anthology project, a part of this book. It's life-changing. It's life-changing. As I read the different chapters and I hear how self-care has been such a major part of all of the author's journeys and how it looks different for everybody. It just has been amazing. It has been amazing. And so we're going to get into your chapter in a little bit. And we're going to talk about some nuggets of the chapter. But I like to start off by asking everybody the same question. What is your definition of self-care?
Well, again, thank you so much for having me on this wonderful podcast and to be a part of this wonderful project, Girl Be Selfish. Listen, selfish, I have not been. So I have to a certain extent, of course, but for the most part, I have not been. And so with this project and some other things that have happened this year in 24, I have really taken time to acknowledge that I need to be selfish or more selfish with my time, with my energy, with the projects that I work on. And so self-care to me really means acknowledging that, just those various things, being, mindful of my time, being mindful of the projects that I've taken on, being mindful of, okay, so what are my dreams and aspirations? What do I want to be doing? I'm in my late 50s. And so it's like, okay, so what do I want to be doing, this next season of my life? As I approach the big 60. So just being mindful. I think mindfulness, when I think of course, resilience, having, just recognizing, what my strengths are. And again, what do I really want to spend time doing now?
That's really, really good. You said mindfulness and you said that a couple of times. And I think when we think about self-care, we do have to consider mindfulness, right? There's something about being self-aware to help you to get to your next level. And what I found as a therapist is that most people are not self-aware, right? Most people can't see themselves, but there's something about what I like to call radical self-awareness. When you know yourself so deeply, right? Like you know yourself so deeply that if something is off, you're automatically able to pick up on it. For a lot of people, they don't know themselves well enough. And so when things are off with them, like they feel off, but they can't quite put words to it. I don't really know what's going on. Right. And then by the time they get help, they're already in full out burnout or not functioning at their highest capacity. So I love this idea of how you talk about being mindful and mindfulness being an aspect of self-care. What was your journey to becoming more mindful, of becoming more aware of yourself?
Oh, wow. So many things. So many things have occurred. My life has, I've had ups and downs, as many of us have, of course. But when I was going through illness with my husband, my late husband, it really, that really sort of catapulted or was the catalyst for me to, to say, you know what, all of this, when you have everything going on around you and there's things spinning out of control that you have no control over. You
Mhm.
have absolutely no control over, but you do have control of how you respond to
Mm.
things. And so, when you can't control what you can't control, but then realize, you know what, let me deal with what I can. What I can't, how I respond to things, how much time, how much effort. I know that in my sort of, again, my maturity as a woman is learning that I can't do all things, and I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. But I have to realize that, what
Mhm.
my capacity is, and then what do I want to give the energy to? And so when
Yeah.
you have family things or you have things that are happening to you personally, and so you want to just take it all. You just want
Yeah.
to handle it, but you can't. And then that's what I think, that I really believe that's really when I had that eye-opening experience, or that
Mhm.
epiphany, if you will. That
Mhm.
no, this is something that I can't control, but thinking about sort of those end moments of the time that
Mhm.
I had with him. And one of the things he said to me was that I needed to live. And so, and for me to live, that meant that I was essentially, letting go and saying, okay, I, despite the fact that, he was transitioning, but
Mhm.
that I knew that there was still life afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's so huge. You talk about the topic that well, at the time of the recording of this podcast, that I will be talking about at the conference next week, is selfish living.
Mm,
And this idea of how living is the greatest form of self-care, to live. And
mm,
when you make the decision and the determination to live rather than just exist in the world, it
right.
opens up a different level of fulfillment for you, right? Because essentially we determine whether or not we're going to live or exist. It doesn't mean that difficult situations in life are not going to happen. Like, life is always going to be life. Like, we're not going to be able to control, stop things from happening. But when I make the decision to live rather than merely exist, it completely shifts you. It
Indeed.
shifts your mindset, and it
Mhm.
shifts your ability to be able to handle the difficulties of life, right? It's the difference between falling apart as soon as something happened versus your word, resilience, versus being able to deal with it as it comes, but I'm going to keep on moving and keep enjoying life anyway. So I love that idea. Like, there is a difference between living and existing. And let me tell you something. When you live, when you finally get to a place where you live, you never want to go back to existing. You never want to go back to a place where you're just merely here.
Yes, absolutely not. I mean, and I definitely, again, I think it's the season that I'm in, and I mean, I think we all go through those different, the different seasons, the different times in our lives where, or even the different things that we have to deal with, the situations and circumstances, and again, how you respond to those things. And I believe I just, as a younger woman, I was very more, sort of the, you know uh, responding in such a way that may not have been the most favorable way to respond. And so, have learned. So, like, the learning has happened,
Mm,
the learning is continuing to
yeah,
happen. And
yeah.
so, just having an understanding. I mean, and I'm very, very much a spiritual woman. So I understand, I know what the word says about getting
Mhm.
ahead. So it's the wisdom, but then
Yeah,
also about the understanding. And so
yes.
when you're trying to move through life as we do, so moving through life, we're never supposed to get
Mhm.
stuck. So yeah, so go from existing to living, or living to existing, or and I think we do that sort of
Mhm.
simultaneously, but to realize that, what, I just gotta keep pushing, keep moving
Yes.
forward, and know that there's more, but then sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
So So
Yeah.
it's got that balance, a balance
Mhm.
of it all. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
And all of that goes back to what you said, that M word, mindfulness. It
mindfulness.
takes a mindfulness, it takes a self-awareness of knowing when I need more and when I need less, so that you can operate in the wisdom of that. So I love that. I love that. So you use the word resilience. We're going to jump into your chapter really quickly. But I want you to give for us your definition. What is resilience?
Oh, so when I approached the project or approached
Mhm.
the chapter and writing, and there is a backstory to it as well. Um, when I got, I was thinking about, who I was in that moment,
Mm,
that I called upon some strength in me that I didn't really know I had.
mm,
And so, so when I started to sort of, think it through and pondering, and I went to the dictionary to look it up, and, went online to get some, sort of again, another backstory in terms of, sort of understanding of
mm-hmm,
of strength. Okay, so strength and courage and bravery and all of those words have similar
mm-hmm,
meanings. And so I was like, no, this is bigger than that. It's so resilience. And so resilience means to have that sort of steadfastness uh,
mm,
in the situation, in a circumstance, and then still being able to see past it, that, okay, I
yeah,
can move past it, that I can
mhm.
move forward. So that would be my definition of
Yeah,
resilience.
yeah.
Mhm.
I love steadfastness for the definition of resilience. And I used to work in a school, and we would talk with the students about resilience all the time. But this is the first time I think that I've ever heard it described as steadfastness. I love that. It is that unmovableness. It is that ability to plow through. Like, yes, it's hard. Yes, it's difficult. It's also the ability to take my hardships and bounce back and learn from them, right? To
Yeah.
learn from and get the lessons out of what it is that I've gone through. And what we find is resilient people are healed people.
Mm,
Resilience is a different level. When you want to talk about strength, resilience is a different level of strength, right?
yeah.
And what I love about it is that it is something that can be learned. There's certain things that people have where it's just like either you have it or you don't.
Right.
Resilience is one of those things that you can learn, but unfortunately, in order to be resilient, that means you have to go through some hard times. You're not just I wake up and I never go through anything in life and so I'm resilient. Resilience is born out of hardship, not just born out of hardship, but what you do and how you respond to that hardship.
Exactly.
And so that's good. So I think that's a great segue into your chapter. So
Mhm.
tell us the name of your chapter and then give us some tidbits. Don't give it all away because they're going to have to contact you to get the book to hear it all. But just tell us a little bit about your chapter.
So my chapter title is A Widow's Resilience, Self-Care Practices for Moving Forward in Life and Love After Death Do Us Part. So the title should really, of course, tell you what it's about. It's about my story as it relates to being a widow. Initially, it was birthed out of several people coming to me and said, Tanya, maybe you should, journal what's happening or what has happened to you. And so I was like, okay, so good idea. Good idea. I love to write. But sometimes I've been writing professional writing, not
Mhm,
personal writing. So when I wrote it, I just really wrote it from the heart. What happened? What happened? It was a story, was to tell the story. But then, of course, did I want to be that vulnerable and share that story
mhm,
with everybody? And so, of course, when I wrote it, I shared it, and then it was like, oh, it sparked so many different
mhm,
things that, people's their own, others' responses to it, to, you need to write a book about this. And I was like, no, this ain't a book. But then, so I had my own project
mhm,
going on with it. And so it's, so to kind of give a little tips, or little, I guess, what sort of,
Just a little nugget, not too
little
much, just a
few
little
nuggets
bit.
about it, but really, again, it's about the story. It's
Mhm,
about the circumstance, the situation, at the time, what was going on. So, it gave the kind of sets the stage for my experience. But there are
mhm,
others I know, and other women who have gone through the similar, uh,
mhm,
stories, same things that have happened to them, and so it gives this sort of the truth of what
mhm.
happened between my husband and I, and walking through his transition. And then on the other side of that, to think through our what was my self-care?
Mhm,
How did I handle the situation? Did I cry? Of course I did. Did I have all of the emotions that come with
mhm,
someone
mhm,
dying?
mhm,
But then there were all the wonderful memories that we had, the stories,
mhm.
the things that I knew that I could always hold on to, and that was all good. And so
Yeah.
it's like in the trauma, in the tragedy,
Mhm.
there was resilience, there was
Yeah.
triumph, there was
Mhm.
victory. I know I'm going to see him again. So it was just those things that I shared in my chapter, in my story.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I wanna pause for a second, and I want to give you your flowers, and I want to thank you for writing your story in terms of I've had this conversation a couple times actually over the last month. Widows are a forgotten population.
Mm.
Widows are an underserved and unserved population. And biblically, right, my pastor brought this to our attention in our church, and we talked about this. Biblically, the Bible tells us to take care of widows. The Bible tells us that, right? And so we recently had someone in our church to lose her husband, and my pastor literally stopped and said, "Uh-oh, we're not doing our biblical mandate. Like, of course, when he first passed, and you do all the things and all of that, but it's so much further. It's beyond the making sure she has food as they planning the homegoing services. But then after the homegoing services, everything just stops, right? And so we recently have developed a ministry, a bereavement ministry, where
Mm.
that will take on and will take up the banner and making sure that there's follow up even beyond the homegoing,
That
right?
is awesome.
Um, and so you and one other lady, who is an author in this book, wrote about her widow's journey, being a widow as well.
How about that?
It's no, it's three of y'all. Now that I think about it, yeah, because it's you, it's Masha, and it's Tanya. Yep, three of y'all. And I'm just like, wow. Like, one, I'm honored to be able to have offered the platform for you all to be able to share your story in a safe space. But then two, just the awesomeness of, because we don't hear about widows. Widows aren't served. And I find that some widows, I don't know, and I want you to educate me in this moment, speak to me in this moment. I don't know if there's a shame around it. I don't know if there's, because a lot of people who lose their spouses don't really talk about it a lot, right? Don't really talk about what it is even after the journey, the things that you were used to, and being a married person and having to readjust now. They don't talk about it. So educate me for a second on what would make it difficult to talk about that journey. We know the obvious, the grief and the loss of a loved one, but I find that widows are often silent.
Well, there's a lot around that, and I and my own discovery, going through it, there aren't many resources. One, um, as much as we would like to think that the church is there for us, not really.
Mm-hmm,
It's that season, that moment, in that
mm-hmm,
moment,
mm-hmm,
that of course, and that's across the board. If it's anyone that you've lost,
mm-hmm,
mom, dad, so, but when it comes to a husband, though, this may be the same thing for a man who lost his wife, because my new husband is also a widower. So
okay.
it is, yeah. So there's a lot to go with that. It has to do with some, there's a lot of cultural things having to do with that.
Okay.
There are things that they're unspoken things like
Yeah.
oh, so when I announced that I was getting remarried, there were people who were like, it's too soon. Too soon for whom?
Okay.
Too soon for whom? Are you sure? Are you, the questions around my loyalty or my love for my late husband. You know, I had oh my God, I had a myriad of different things that different conversations and the different, sort of the comments that others made, sort of, of course, after the fact. Now, this was all when I met my new husband. It was almost a year. It was actually, it was a year later, but there were those who thought that it was too soon, for him to remarry as well. So we had to, we went to, actually, both of us went to the Word and was like, there's nothing in the Bible about this. So it says that we're, like you said, there are those that we're supposed to take care of widows, but it doesn't say that a widow can't remarry. There's nothing in the Bible that says that. It doesn't give a timetable. It doesn't give, that this, like I said, this timetable that I'm supposed to wait 10 years. No, there's nothing in the Bible that says that I have to wait 10 years. Now, you individually may decide to wait. Or you may individually say, you know what, I don't ever want to remarry. So like my mother is a widow, my dad passed, and my mom is in her 80s. And she has not necessarily a desire to remarry. So it depends on where you are in your season, what time, I have young women who it says younger women who have, like, well, kind of like my thought. Here I am, 50 years old. My husband and I, we had planned, of course, to live. This was it, right? We were going to live our lives. But this happened. So then, I'm 50, so 50 something, right? So am I supposed to live the rest of my life without someone? That's not my heart's desire. So I think, again, it's all in the individual and what, sort of what God presents to you in terms of the person or the person, the person that you, because Melvin came out the blue. I was not expecting, I wasn't expecting, and then for us to get married. So I think it's just being mindful. Mindful. You as an individual, what is it that are your desires? As now a single woman, do you want to be single? And again, I think it depends on your age. At 35, you're like, you still have a lot of life to live. So do you want to be, again, it depends on the person. I have a friend now who she's been a widow about 3 years, and she still wears her ring. She's still wearing her ring. She's still sort of acting as though she's still married, which and honestly, she is. He died. She didn't. She has to then go through that grieving process the way she wants to go through it. There is no right or wrong way to do this. So again, it's all about that person and where they are and how they process grief, really.
And what I hear you saying is that it's a very personal journey. And it's okay, whatever you decide is necessary for your journey. If you decide remaining single and living out my days that way, that's okay. If you decide that I still desire and seek companionship and get remarried, it's okay, right? The most important factor is being able to determine that for yourself and not let somebody else tell you what you should or should not do on a journey that they know nothing about. Right? Because everybody has an opinion, But if you haven't dealt with losing your spouse, right? If you haven't dealt with just some real talk stuff. I had another podcast episode, and one of the things the woman said, she was just like, I'm still fairly young and I'm used to having sex. I've been I was married for 13 years or something, and then all of a sudden now I just have to find a way to get over the desire. Like that door has been opened up to me as a married woman, and
Sure.
so now I have to learn how to either I'm gonna live without this the rest of my life, or I'm gonna find companionship. And she even
No.
talked about even how to stay holy. How do I not fall into the trap and do the wrong thing? Like there are just real talk conversations that if you haven't walked the journey, you just don't know about. And so I appreciate the three of you, at least, who are part of this anthology, from being willing to share your story so openly and transparently.
Yeah.
That because there's so many more out there who don't know how to process this journey. And so to be able to hear that you're not alone, and to be able to hear that it's okay, and whatever you decide to do, however long your journey takes you, I'm sure it's helpful for many. So I just want to say thank you again. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. I mean, it is, it's a unique story. And as you say, you haven't walked, so you can't walk the mile in my shoes if you've never experienced what I've gone through. You
Come
cannot.
on.
And
You can.
so like you said, you can't how can you have an opinion about something when has not occurred for you, that has not happened to you. So you can't come back and then tell somebody that, oh, well, you shouldn't get married. Why?
Why?
Why? I have desires, as you
Come
mentioned,
on. Come on.
desires, and let's not even talk about the sex part. This is the intimacy. Let's have the
Exactly.
companionship. So,
Yeah.
you can have a companion, but you don't have to get married. Why?
Why?
God says that we're supposed to marry.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to have, fleet fornication. Okay, I'm not trying. I saved life with my husband. So
Come
now
on.
I'm not saved, or I'm not married. I'm single. So I'm supposed to now go the other way. No,
Exactly.
no, no,
Exactly.
no.
Exactly.
That's, I don't
Yeah.
think that's right either. It's not.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, so why don't you just, kind of stay over there? That's your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. If you are listening today, LaTanya has a unique story.
mhm.
And one that some of you may be able to identify with, and some of you may not. But what I want to say, what I love about it is her story is about this idea of resilience. So whether you're a widow or widower, whether you've lost a spouse or a loved one, or whether you're just trying to reconnect with life and trying to bounce back from something, her chapter has all of that, and it's able to help you to learn how to just to be resilient in life, no matter whether it's loss. And here's the thing. Oh, let's talk about this for a second. Loss is not just of a person or a loved one, y'all.
Mm-mm.
It could be the loss of expectations. It could be the loss of friendships. It could be the loss of a job. Like we grieve all kinds of things, right? And so learning how to be resilient in all aspects of life is so necessary, and it's so important, because if you are a human being and you are alive, you will at some point in your life experience loss, and will have to learn to walk this journey of resilience. And so that's what LaTanya's chapter has to offer. Listen, you need to run. I'm gonna let her tell you in a second how you can contact her, but you need to run and get your copy of the book. Like I've been saying this all season, and if you haven't gotten a book yet, I'm just convinced like you just out here trying to be rebellious at this point, because it is such a good book. And what I've been telling people is I don't even call it a book so much as I call it a tool. It is the tool in your arsenal towards wellness. If you are a woman, and listen, yes, we're talking to the ladies, but gentlemen, there's something here for you too if you want to pick it up. But if you are a person and you're on a journey, you're trying to live a more fulfilled life, you feel like you've come up on some rough patches, you feel like life is getting the best of you, this is the tool, this is the book for you to help you to learn how to enact your self-care. And we're not just talking about the relaxation aspect, we're not just talking about getting your hair done and maintenance, we are talking about that real self-care where you dig deep down and you do some work on the inside of you. And so, LaTanya, I hear in the spirit, the people are yelling, how can I get the book from LaTanya? So tell the people how they can contact you.
So the book will be my website, and my website is www.thefoundhersuite.com. It will be in our store on the foundhersuite.com website. I'm excited to answer any questions anyone may have. I will have a link there also that you'll be able to, complete a form if, in terms of a contact form, if you'd like to, for further information or to order additional copies, to have me come and speak. Any of those things will be available on the website. So again, www.thefoundhers, that's FOUND Suite, SUITE.com.
Awesome. And listen, we're going to make sure that all of LaTanya's contact information is in the show notes. So you all will be able to just click the link right in the show notes. You'll be able to grab it, go to her website, and make sure that you get a copy of the book today. Do not delay. But LaTanya, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today. I want to thank you for being a part of this anthology project. And I want to thank you again for telling your story. Your story. Our stories heal. Our stories heal. And the fact that you were willing to tell your story, there's going to be so many people that's going to benefit from it. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. It was so awesome to talk to you today. Listen, everybody, make sure that you all stay tuned. We are not done with this podcast. We have more amazing episodes coming. We have a few more episodes coming with a couple of more authors, but it's been good so far. So make sure that you subscribe to the podcast. You can subscribe on all the channels. Again, as LaTanya said, if you have any questions, reach out to us, contact us. We want to talk about this. That's why we wrote it, because we want to talk about this. We want to be able to help you on your journey. But I hope that today's podcast was amazing for you all. I'm super excited to be back with you with the next episode. But until then, as I always say, stay selfish. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.